everyone. Can you all hear me? Great. So AI has been there on and off and pretty much on actually since morning. I see that it might have been a little saturating by now, but I'll try to keep it very uh, minimal, maybe not too concentrated for the time being. But before we start, let me give a quick introduction. Hi, I'm Sumitra Biswal. I'm a tech lead in Bosch Global Software Technologies, and I'm working as the tech lead in the intersection of AI and cybersecurity, where I look into the security aspects of AI as well as innovating security with AI. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, so couple of days back, I came across a very interesting line, which meant that AI won't replace you, but people who are using AI will replace you. And that has become the word now, and this is how AI is taking its lead. So the idea of this topic here is understanding the paradox associated with AI. If you can see, when we talk about AI in such, so what do you see? Like, is AI a superhero to you? Is it a victim to you? Is it a villain to you? So, how do you perceive AI? Now, if you ask me, I see it as perhaps Superman, right? Superman would become a normal human whenever it's exposed to kryptonite. It would lose all its power, it would become vulnerable. So does AI. Now, you imagine how AI is being used in cybersecurity. It's helping resolve a lot of. That's fine. So, yeah. So when we talk about AI and its use, its leverage in cybersecurity, we see that, okay, AI is so powerful. It can help us resolve many things. But it's the same AI when its vulnerabilities are exploited, it becomes the victim, and it is leveraged to do some malicious actions, it becomes the villain. So if you put it in a lighter note, your AI can solve and battle many things, but it's also the same AI that can lock you out of your fridge from your snacks. So that's how easy it goes as well. So what is this paradox right now? When we are seeing AI and its features, which are highly powerful, making it capable to use it for cybersecurity, we are also seeing it as vulnerable and capable of becoming a weapon. So here we will talk that paradox and how we can mitigate this paradox. Now, let's have a shout out for AI as a superhero, where we see that AI has been able to resolve a lot of things, and these are just minimal examples, and these are not limited to just zero log on vulnerability being traced by Darktrace using AI, or Microsoft's Copilot being able to defend for storage, where it was able to use a lot of pattern analysis and identify the polymorphic malware. So how many of you are aware of polymorphic malware? Anyone? Any slightest hint? Have you seen some skeptical people who try to manipulate themselves when there is a certain different scenario? Perhaps they show their good side whenever they're in the limelight. So they change the patterns, they change the behavior. That's how polymorphic malware is. And interestingly, please read upon sometime about Black Mamba. It is one of the AI-powered malware. It was a polymorphic malware. And it was very difficult to trace it because in the sandboxing environment, it was able to navigate itself and become very stealthy. Now, such kind of malwares, which are very sophisticated and can easily bypass traditional measures, these kind of malwares are populating, and this is how the security defense in the Microsoft, the Copilot as well, this has been able to identify, and it's still working on bringing out ways to discover or identify polymorphic malware. And this needs a lot of training because the AI models, as much as they're trained on the adversarial features, they get well equipped. Now that is the strength and success of AI as a superhero. When we also see that AI has been a superhero, what went wrong? What can go wrong as well as that? There has been an incident of conversational overflow cyber attack where it was able to bypass AI's cybersecurity systems as well. Even if the cybersecurity systems were powered with AI, they were bypassed easily by this conversation overflow attack. Now, what exactly was this? It was able to bring out phishing mails in a very legitimate form. What went wrong here was that this system was trained to know the good. So if your email is looking as legitimate as another email, which is a genuine email, it gives it a go. But it was not trained well ahead for the adversarial kinds, where such kind of emails which look like legitimate ones but are malicious. And this is where the bypass occurred. And there was also another incident where the hacker tool, there was a tool called Recall in Microsoft that was used in the Windows. This was used typically to help the users go back to the past tasks so they don't forget. It was inspired from the movie Total Recall. Now this one also had an issue because it was able to retain the data, the images, in an unencrypted manner. And the researchers identified that and understood how it can be easily breached. Now the reason why these two incidents have been brought out is because AI is also vulnerable. It is not completely secure, and we need to keep it secure. And there are several such incidents. This is where we come into the picture, the security by default. Now that is, security by default really matters here because if you're using AI for bringing out security products, you need to ensure that your AI, that is the base of your security products, needs to be as secure. And there are a couple of points here that I would like to express. Like, you can see an image of a puzzle. It's a magnanimous puzzle with lots of pieces. And you can interpret each puzzle piece as a security feature. You can have threat and risk assessments. You can have security concepts, and so on and so forth. But if you don't complete this entire puzzle, it will be really frustrating because there will be that one missing puzzle which could have completed this picture. And that is how the security by design and defense in depth also goes. So you need to have every security feature in place so that you have a robust security posture of your AI. But now that also brings us to a question. Some might feel that, won't that be overwhelming having a lot of security features altogether for a system? This is also where we come to the second point, where we say one size doesn't fit AI. Now we know like how AI is dynamic, adaptive. It's also getting learning, self-learning abilities are being imbibed in it. And it's typically, we can say, temperamental also, like a teenager maybe. And that's where we see that the dynamic nature needs to have an adaptive security in place as well, which can adjust itself, and right amount of security will be able to help the AI build its functionality as well. And the third point that we come across is embedding security right from the design phase. Now you can imagine having a bridge. You are building a bridge and then testing it, whether it can withstand. Is that the right procedure? Would you like to build a bridge and then test it? Of course not. That's not the right way. You cannot have that way. You need to have the testing and everything right before you push it ahead, right? So in the design phase itself, you need to have certain features. So that is where we need to have security by design. So all in all, what we see that we need to have certain security steps, the preliminary steps, while building AI solutions. Now we have seen that we came across the security by default feature, right? And overall, like, we can tag it as security by default, where we are looking at security by design, defense in depth, having the right amount of security. But what if these are not in place? there are certain real instances where certain security measures were not in place, and we can look into this as one is the Tesla autopilot. Now, there were researchers who identified that this Tesla autopilot had some vulnerabilities. You can imagine a pedestrian detection system in the vehicle, and it passes off on the stop signs as well, where it was supposed to stop. So researchers were able to identify and create certain stickers to evade your system, the AI system. And this worked. So a simple amount of effort was needed to create evasive signals, and your Tesla autopilot started functioning in a way, in an erratic manner. Okay? And then there was also a recent instance of 2023, that is ChatGPT leak. So a lot of sensitive information was leaked also. And this also leaked out the payment details of the users. So then this is how we understand that if you're not having your trust in place, when you're building a solution, the first thing that you need to have that, will my customer, will my consumer have the trust on the system that I'm building? Once that trust is shattered, it becomes very difficult to regain it. So this is one lesson learned, that when we are looking at the data sharing aspects, we need to be very considerate about the privacy and security aspects as well. How we are dealing with the data, how we are securing it, how we are sharing it is something that is a matter of $1 million. And then the third one was where Amazon Alexa, it predicted certain information and gave misinformation about some election details of the US election, presidential elections, and that created a lot of chaos. So you can imagine when we are also looking at day-to-day lives, when there is a lot of hype about certain kind of incidents or news which are overhyped, that creates a lot of chaos, right? So similar kind of situation, if you're going to expect, which you're going to feel through the AI, it can be really catastrophic. Now, in this kind of scenarios, what we see that the things that we observe is, one, the first thing is mere few stickers, if can create that kind of an impression of AI, then it will be very difficult to carry forward with AI. So AI needs to be trained in a robust manner with the adversarial scenarios as well, a lot of exhaustive scenarios actually. And the second thing that we see is compromise of data. So when we are sharing, when we are using the data, because AI is data-centric, so how you use the data, how you retain it, how you handle it is very important. So this is where the trust of your users lie. And the third one being Amazon Alexa's AI predictive failure. So the misinformation that is carried out, which we also sometimes that we call as the hallucination, where there is no source for the data, this also needs to be curtailed. This needs to be in a controlled manner, and the information that is spread through AI should be in a responsible manner. So these are certain lessons that we observe from these real cases. And now that we have seen how AI is acting as a superhero, how AI is acting as a victim, can be victimized, or it can also act as a villain. So how about we look at how AI is actually being the target? What are the typical technical things that make it exploit its vulnerability? One of them is data poisoning. Any of you are aware of data poisoning? Any hint? Any clue? That's right. So when you are training your AI system, you expect that it is trained well. It's just like a kid. If you're not giving it the right information, it's going to behave in an unruly manner, right? So your data poisoning is exactly the same thing. You have your data which is corrupted. You inject this corrupted data during the training session, and you expect your AI to behave in a proper manner. Now, that's not possible, right? You should have a certain check that ensures that the data that goes into the training phase is not corrupted. Now, there was an example, a previous example also that we discussed. Now, imagine in the case that we discussed earlier, your vehicle not able to differentiate between certain stickers and overriding itself, going through the like the pedestrian walk even when the stop sign is there. What was the case? What would have been the reason? lack of training, right? It could have been trained also exclusively with certain such kind of adversarial scenarios. So it could have stopped, it could have detected that the sticker that is available here is actually trying to evade me, trying to fool me. So I should be aware of this. So this is where your training also comes into picture. Your data poisoning, your data should be corruption free. Then the evasion attack, evasion is just like deceiving the AI that we discussed earlier about having certain stickers to evade it. Now that is also a link with data poisoning as well, because if your training system is already corrupted, it will not be able to distinguish between the right and the wrong. And lack of training also will make it a fool. So this is how we also see evasion attack is something that AI is typically susceptible to. Then the model inference. When we talk about model inference, we are talking about extraction or gathering the private information or the training information typically. So you can imagine a healthcare center which is trained on patient sensitive data. You don't want that data to be out there, right? It's something that is very private. But if your AI model is inferred for all this information and your AI model is able to just blabber everything, okay, I have so and so diabetic patients, I have so and so age group of people who are having cancer, or XYZ person is having such kind of a disease, then there's no point having an AI system that is being used in, that should be used in healthcare, right? So this is where we see that model inference can also be a threat to your AI. And there also is model extraction. So you have come up with a proprietary model. You have an AI model that is very much centric, very much private to you. And it's that the attackers are able to identify, they are able to extract the brain of your system. Now, how would that be? All your efforts are lost, and not just that, it can be copied and it can be misused under the name of the company, or let's say your organization itself is going to be bring you a bad reputation, right? So these are just some fundamental attacks, but then these are just not the attacks. There are a lot of different kind of attacks that are evolving. Even for the large language models, there are a lot of different kinds of attacks that are evolving. So this is the idea of having this in place, is to understand that AI, whom we consider a superpower, is also vulnerable and susceptible to different kinds of attacks. And most of these attacks are also very easy to replicate, to implement, to execute. So coming to this, now as we discussed about the different kinds of attacks, how would you feel if your AI was a super martial artist, maybe, right? It could understand when's the punch coming up and when it can defend itself. So half of your trouble would be like sorted, because your AI is super capable of defending itself. Now this is where we come across the self-healing AI. Now self-healing AI is something that is still in a research way. Some parts of it has been developed over the time, but it's still in a research mode. And we hope that sooner in future we can have a very resilient self-immune system of AI, where it can defend itself from such attacks. Now that we have understood AI as a tool and a target and understood the self-healing AI nature, so who is going to be responsible to ensure that AI is able to defend itself under the norms that we lay, right? And it's going to play fair. It shouldn't be like defending against any kind of threats, or maybe taking solo call on its own. So getting the autonomy, that becomes a difficulty. So this is where we need to have a control base, and there are certain aspects that can ensure that AI plays a fair game, and it's also working under the norms that we lay. Now that is where governance and ethical AI comes in place. So first one being human in the loop. Now AI is actually an IA, where it's actually an intelligent assistance. This is how we have to right now perceive it, rather than giving it the full autonomy to make the decision. It can be an excellent assistant, it can do the fast response, fast work, it can go through voluminous data and give you the information, but ultimately it is you who has to take the call, who has to take the decision. So human in the loop needs to be there in the place. Bias in AI. So when we say that a kid should learn from us, we are the ones who are going to set the principles for the kids, right? The virtues and the vice, everything has to be learned from us. He has to understand and be maybe a replica of us, of our understanding, our principles. So it is our duty which is going to help whether AI can take in bias or not. So we should be able to train it in a way that bias is out of the picture. We have to train it with a lot of information, diverse information, different kinds, and a really voluminous amount of such diverse data, so that it can distinguish between and it can prevent getting biased. And the third one being balancing innovation and security. So we have the knack of getting innovation in place, but at what cost? Do you think that putting AI and its pillars of responsible AI at stake, we should have innovation? That is not possible, right? And we are not discouraging use of AI for innovation as well. So there has to be a balance between innovation and security, and that can be done with the help of governance and ethical principles. Okay, now we have had a lot of words on AI as a superpower, victim, villain, different kinds of principles that can govern it, self-healing AI. But do you think these are all possible just by their own self, or just single person can help do this? We see that there is a need for having a collaborative effort, so that to redefine this trust that we talk about and have this AI built with the trust, we need to collaboratively work towards it. And when we talk about the security and agility, we are looking at how agile AI can be, and still it can retain its security. So can we have such kind of an AI which is flexible to innovation, create a lot of difference, and yet be resilient to different kinds of attacks? Is it possible? We need to work towards it. And the third thing being regulations. We have seen over the time there have been a lot of AI regulations coming in place, be it from the global perspective, be it in the small scales, but are these regulations going to hamper the innovation process? No. We have to stick to the guidelines and still bring out the innovation. So we have to walk on the eggshells and still create the innovation, and this is where we need a collaborative effort, how we can attain this. And this collaborative effort can be understood by having a lot of groups, working groups together. It can be tech enthusiasts, it can be researchers from various kinds, industrialists who can bring about different kinds of standards and protocols and navigate through the journey of innovation and security as well, so that both are balanced. We cannot afford to have a complete blocked pipeline as well, and we cannot afford to have innovation without any security as well. So this partnership for security by default is a call for action that we need to take care of and have a collective responsibility here, so that AI's 5 pillars, like we have from the transparency aspects, privacy, security, explainability, everything needs to be captured in the responsible aspects. So I would like to conclude now by bringing out certain key takeaways here, that as we have explored how AI can be both like a defender and a target, and how security by design is critical, collaboration becomes a key to success. So this isn't just a conversation, but a call for action that we see. And security by default must be a priority here, so that we can work together to achieve it. And let's take like the next steps can be like we can ask questions about collaborating and how we can build a safe AI, a secure AI to work with. Okay, and this is where I would like to express my interest to work together and an open invitation to collaborative efforts where we can build such a robust solution. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
So recently we saw that ChatGPT, right, OpenAI, they were testing their new ChatGPT model, and what happened was when the developers and the testers they tried to shut it down, it basically tried to evade the shutdown, and it also transferred its data from one server to another server, right? So what are your thoughts on this, and how can we as users and developers and essentially humans obviously prevent this to happen? And basically, why did this happen? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
If I understood your question correctly, you're meaning to say that there was a security risk in the chat GPT and they took proactive control of that, or are you saying that they made a hasty decision of transferring data from one server?
So essentially, the model itself, right? So the AI, right? What it did was it tried to prevent its own shutdown,
Yes.
and it transferred its own data from one server to another server,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Without any human intervention, right?
That's right.
Autonomously.
Now that's a classic case of where we don't want to treat the waters because human in the loop was not involved. AI was given that autonomy to
Exactly.
take a decision, take a call. Now imagine if that situation would have happened with a human in place who had have navigated this entire thing and brought out a proper regulations, or maybe would have taken a better decision rather than the machine taking control of it. That would have been a more regulatory based, a more ethical way. So these are certain things I would like to bring it out also to your attention, that these certain minuscule things are what are coming into limelight because there is lack of test. Where we talk about adversarial testing, we are talking of magnanimous testing. A lot of varieties of information, varieties of data that can be flawed, flawless. Everything needs to be tested, various scenarios. Then only we can have a robust posture of AI. Now, if this scenario would have been tested and would have been prevented right from the training stage, maybe this would not have happened.
Understood. And also on your point with regards to the resilient AI, right? The point that you mentioned. So do you think, like going forward, of course, we're going to be designing more and more AI systems. Do you think there would be a point wherein AI becomes so resilient that when you try to shut it down, okay, because it's going out of hand, would that kind of a scenario also occur in the future?
That is typically a Terminator movie case, right? So
Kind of.
that's not what we are going to look for. We will be looking for then the corner effect, who will have to come into picture and bring AI to shut down. So in order to avoid these kind of scenarios, we have to play right from the beginning itself. That is why the regulations are coming right now from the track. So when we bring out AI with the evolving stages, now we are hearing a lot about AGI as well. So as and when AI gets more superpower and supercomputing, it can also deem a human as inferior over the time, right? And this is where both have to walk that path of regulations hand in hand. So that harmony needs to be created right from now. Hope that answers. Any more?
Hello, great session. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Trisha, Chairperson at Women Data Protection Foundation. You spoke about security by design. Now, when we look at the amount of data that AI collects and uses to train its system, what do you think about privacy by design and how we are going to respect that in future?
Excellent question. Now that is very valid because AI is a system that is running on the fuel called data. And data is equal to privacy. So if you have privacy, your data is private, and also not just private, but we also need to ensure the security. So privacy by design is equally important as security by design. So you need to have many privacy enhanced techniques right? PETs, like we have the
Yeah.
homomorphic encryption
Yes.
or anonymity, and that to place in the right way such that your data, when is being used for training the AI, it should be able to train on such private information so that when it's exposed to the outside, the external environment, the testing data, unknown data, it should be able to navigate through it properly without having to leak it. So that is crucial, really crucial. Thank you for bringing it out.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, my question is that whenever the debate comes up that AI might become conscious, so is that just human paranoia of the thing about being the survival of the fittest? So is that just human paranoia that we are paranoid of every little like um, leap we make in technology? Like in the 80s when the computers was being introduced in the government sectors, the government banks employees went on strike that with the fear that computers would take away their jobs. And in today's date we see that no sector almost can function without computers. So whenever that debate comes about ki AI will take over, is it just human paranoia or like AI can become conscious actually?
Wow, that's a very heavy question, and that doesn't just need technical answer, but if you think from the abstract point of mind, it's completely a human mindset. As you also brought out a classic example of computers. Now you also see that AI has also brought up new avenues in occupation, right? The prompt engineers. Where were they back then? So that's also there. The scope of opportunity for jobs also opens up. But it's all up to how you use AI, how responsibly you use AI. So when we talked about the human in the loop, if that's there, so both work in sync. And for the matter of AI getting conscious over time and the human paranoia, well, I would say if you speak logically, AI is also working on data, right? As much of a data you feed it, it understands it, it trains itself, takes the feedback. But having realization of becoming conscious, that might take some time, and perhaps we are light years away from that. Thank you.
Ma'am, so in an answer you just mentioned about privacy preserving machine learning.
Yeah.
So I just had a question. Apart from homomorphic encryption, is there any other algorithm that we can use?
Yes, of course, there are a lot of regulations and rule books regarding privacy enhanced technologies. There are a couple of like 5 to 7 different fundamental technologies that can be used apart from homomorphic, like federated learning is there, pseudonymization. There are a lot of such techniques. Even there are hybrid ways of getting things done. So yes, that again depends on how and which kind of scenario you are using. Suppose, let's say you are using certain data that where pseudonymization is sufficient, you won't have to go for homomorphic, right? They have to balance the optimization also.
And how do we determine that?
Yeah, that again needs a lot of research, understanding different kinds of scenarios where you're working with, what kind of data you're working with, and a lot of experimentations can help you understand that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you.